Well, Frisians love water as long as it is sweet and as long as it is ice. But where the waters get salty, you hardly find any Frisians anymore. Some wad walkers, some wad sailors, and some bird watchers, of course, but that's about it. Even the inhabitants of the Frisian Islands hardly go beyond the boundaries of their islands. It is wet there and very muddy. Yich. The Frisian part of the Dutch Waddensea is heavily underestimated within Friesland itself. In theory, it's a respected nature reserve. In practice, it's a barren sea desert. By neglecting the Wadden Sea, Frisians harm both the interests of Friesland and those of the Wadden Sea. This should change, and I hope to convince you of that. The lack of interest by Frisians for the Wadden Sea is historically explainable. As you see on this map from 1933, the islands Vlieland and Schilge were not part of Friesland then. The Frisian Wadden Sea in those days was very small. These islands were part of the province of Northern Holland. In 1942, the Germans handed over Vlieland and Schilge to Friesland. And after the Second World War, the North Hollanders didn't think it worthwhile to reclaim them. Since then, as you can see, the Frisian Wadden Sea is at least half as big as the Frisian mainland. It's high time for Friesland to recognize that its real heart is not the Lake District, but the Frisian Wadden Sea. The lakes are stagnant, cultural dominated. The Frisian Wadden Sea, on the other hand, is the natural pumping heart of Friesland. Twice a day, its bosoms fill with new salty water. Twice a day, this water streams out again, leaving behind nutrients and fresh clay on which new life thrives. But Frisians hardly recognize this potential wealth. The salty Wadden Sea waters should stay outside the dikes, then it's all right. The shellfish from the Wadden Sea may simply be taken away to Zealand or to Spain. Fishermen who want to collect cockles by night with bright lamps flaring may do so. If someone wants to build a high industrial hall or wind energy park, the northwestern part of Frisia is available, no matter the landscape consequences. This constant policy of neglect has led to a Frisian Wadden Sea as poor as possible. If you want to earn some decent bread there now as a fisherman, the only creatures that are abundant enough to harvest are just 1 inch long. Cockles, mussels, and shrimp. Everything that's bigger than that is fairly gone or taken away. Luckily, the species themselves have not gone extinct, so hope for recovery is realistic. But numbers are very low. Why don't Frisians realize that a poor Wadden Sea is far less profitable in several aspects than a rich Wadden Sea would be? The Wadden Sea is a shallow coastal sea in a temperate climate zone. As a consequence, it's a very rich sea by nature. Rivers feed it constantly with nutrients. Large parts of the western Wadden Sea once were covered with seagrass beds. The dry falling parts were not grey and yellow at low tide, but dark green as far as you can see. Seagrass fields give shelter to lots of young fish. As the tide rises, first the rays and small sharks come in. The seawater seems to boil everywhere their fins wrinkle. Then, as the tide is high, dolphins jump in on the hunt for big fish. It's a feast for the eye, a big attraction for every visitor. Until the year 1700, even large grey whales lingered around, 8 to 15 meters long, feeding on shellfish and roots of seagrass. A complete skeleton of a grey whale was found in the Wieringermeer when this area was laid dry. Grey whales are the only species that we really have wiped out here in this area. Their relatives live as close as Alaska nowadays. On this map here, the Afsluitdijk was only 1 year old. The construction of this dike troubled the waters of the Western Wadden Sea for many years. Grass as we all know, doesn't grow in the dark. The condition of the seagrass beds became weak, seagrass suffered from illness, and by the time the Afsluitdijk was ready in 1932, it disappeared completely from the western Wadden Sea. In the Afsluitdijk, there are two big draining devices. They spill out big sweet water flows into the salty Wadden Sea, and for the re-establishment of seagrass fields, this is very bad news. Now, after 75 years of existence, the Afsluitdijk is going to be renovated. Instead of Friesland grasping this unique chance to repair the damage done to the Wadden Sea ecosystem by the Afsluitdijk, Friesland allows the state government to add a third draining device to this eco-barrier. This, while the growing flow of sweet water can be handled far better by placing pumps under this dike, so that you can get rid of the water surplus also at high tide, and so that you can spread the sweet water flow evenly from now on. And there is more that we could do right now. Each year, 1/4 of all young sweetwater fish is flushed out from the Lake IJssel into the salty Wadden Sea to die in a horrendous way. The renovation of the Afsluitdijk gives opportunity to handle this problem once and for all. So by recreating conditions for seagrass fields, by building bypasses for migrating fish, and by preventing sweetwater fish from being flushed out into the salty water, the living conditions for fish on both sides of this dike would improve massively. Why are so few people in Friesland interested in this big chance for improvement? Another example of sturdy neglect of the possibilities of the Wadden Sea for Friesland is the way the city of Harlingen, here, clings to heavy industry instead of full-heartedly embracing water sports as its core business. Harlingen could claim its unique position as the only really monumental harbour city alongside the whole Dutch Wadden Sea coast. Harlingen's geographical position in the middle of this whole Wadden Sea coast and near the gates to Lake IJssel couldn't be better for water sport water sport goals. But instead of focusing on that, Harlingen claims its place among the most ugly harbours in the region. Den Helder, Eemshaven and Delfzijl. So Harlingen keeps on ruining its precious Wadden Sea front with one white factory hall next to another, and Harlingen's large harbour for fishery and industry lies empty most of the year, while the sailing fleet lies crammed in a dangerously small corner next to the harbour mouth. Harlingen's wish to be reachable for big cargo vessels demands more and more digging in the Wadden Sea. This is not sustainable at all. Harlingen could win so much by turning away from its already lost competition with deep water harbours and start to present itself as the natural home harbour to the complete brown fleet instead, hosting all these ships at winter in the large Wadden harbour and facilitating ship owners there with wharves for classical ship maintenance and shipbuilding. Visitors would stream in, attracted by the liveliness and beauty of this unique concentration of monumental vessels and genuine craftsmanship. What keeps Harlingen from choosing a better and more prosperous future for itself, in harmony instead of in struggle with the Frisian Wadden Sea? The same goes for the role of Friesland and Harlingen as a fishing area. Supporting the recovery of the rich Wadden Sea, Harlingen could become a home harbour to a small local fishing fleet. Every day at dusk, these small boats enter together, creating a touristical highlight and bringing in top products for local top restaurants. But Harlingen rather harbours the big Northsea fishing boats of Urk that need artificial deep-water access. Old-school Wadden Sea neglect policy, that's what this is. But there is good news after all. The nature organizations drove away the mechanical cockle industry from the Wadden Sea in 2005. After that, they entered in a process of negotiation with the mussel industry and the government. In 2009, this resulted in the so-called Mussel Covenant. Not only aims this at making the catch of young mussels sustainable, but it also enables the Wadden Sea to become the rich sea again, as it should be. In Leeuwarden, a whole team of experts work this out now in a program with the same lifespan as the Wadden Fund. Several investigation programs are already running that will deliver scientific basis for ecological recovery. Comparable covenants with the hand cockle sector and the shrimp sector are in the make as we speak. Also in the Northsea coastal zone, such a covenant is almost arranged now. These are historical steps forward. I hope that this TED Talk, with this TED Talk, I focused your warm attention on the Frisian Wadden Sea for the years to come, for exciting things are going to happen there. Together we have to keep on this Wadden Sea recovery program to be ready in time for the biggest of sea creatures to reclaim its territory in the North Sea and in the Frisian Wadden Sea. And now I have a surprise for you. Oops. Okay. Here you see the North Pole, with Alaska here and Frisia there, Friesland there. Beyond all expectations, some 3 months ago, a grey whale was reported on our side of the globe. It appeared all at once in the Mediterranean here, and no one knows whether it came through the Suez Canal or that it came through the Straits of Gibraltar here. Fact is that the only big population of grey whales lives here, near Alaska, on this shore here, this corner. Another fact is that last year, almost for the first time, this whole northwest passage here was free of ice due to global warming. And as you know, whales need to come to the surface to breathe. So now, for the first time, grey whales are able to swim from Alaska to Greenland and further. When we can restore the large seagrass beds in the Frisian Wadden Sea, we can make this environment suitable again for a fresh population of grey whales. So why think small when nature acts great? Thank you.